Kate Ford, and we have concluded closed session this evening. It is Tuesday, September 28th, 2021, and at 5:49 p.m., I am calling to order this regular meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District School Board. And now for information about interpretation for this meeting.
Thank you, Board President Ford. Good evening. I will give this announcement regarding language interpretation in both English and Spanish. Buenas tardes. Voy a dar este anuncio sobre la interpretación en inglés y en español. In order to provide language access, we will be providing simultaneous bidirectional interpretation in English and Spanish. If you are bilingual, you do not have to click anything. If you are not bilingual in English and Spanish, you will have to select your language in order to hear the interpretation. If you are using a laptop or a desktop, at the bottom right of your screen, you will see a globe icon that says interpretation. Please click on the globe now and select English. If you are using an iPad or a phone, locate the three-dot menu and select Language Interpretation, then select English and click Done. And remember, when it's your turn to speak, please remember to be loud and clear and speak at a moderate pace. We are also offering American Sign Language ASL interpretation for this meeting. If you will be using ASL interpretation, please use the Zoom app on your computer, tablet, or phone to join this meeting. If you joined this meeting through your web browser, you may not be able to see the ASL interpreter at all times. Esta reunión contará con interpretación simultánea bidireccional en inglés y en español. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada. Si usted no es bilingüe, tendrá que elegir su idioma para escuchar la interpretación. Si está usando una computadora, verá un icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla a la derecha en forma de globo que dice Interpretación. Haga clic ahí ahora y seleccione Español. Si está usando un iPad o su teléfono, localice el menú de 3 puntos, haga clic en Interpretación de idiomas, elija Español y Finalizar. O si está en inglés, dice Done. Y recuerde, cuando sea su turno de hablar, por favor, hable con voz fuerte y clara y a un paso moderado. Gracias. Thank you. We may begin.
Thank you very much. And now, Dr. Maldonado, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Great. Please stand, face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
During closed session this evening, the board voted unanimously to approve the final settlement agreement and general release in case number 2021021060391. The motion was made by Ms. Sims-Moten and seconded by Ms. Alvarez. Later in this meeting, the board will also take action on a student discipline matter, which was confidentially reviewed and discussed in closed session. Tonight, the school board is again meeting in person wearing masks as mandated by Santa Barbara County Public Health, and the public may participate through live streaming. The COVID-19 report number 28 is at 6 p.m. tonight, and the board will take a 10-minute break after about 2 hours. Dr. Maldonado, will you continue with your report?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, board members, staff, and public meeting with us today. Welcome to today's meeting. I do want to take a moment to thank Anna Pilhofer, our instructional support specialist, and our unofficial artist in residence. She, along with several elementary teachers, have worked with K-2 students this summer to create the beautiful art that is surrounding us this evening in our boardroom. And I want to thank her and all the staff and students who made this possible. Next slide. At this time, board members, we have been focusing on continuing with regular surveillance testing at our elementary schools where children are not yet eligible for vaccination. And we are working on a major vaccination push at our junior high and high school campuses. And I want to remind everyone that anyone age 12 and older is eligible to be vaccinated at any of our sites. They do not need an appointment. We have to date conducted 3 of 6 mobile vaccine clinics that we've been co-hosting with County Public Health and Cottage Health Systems on our secondary campuses. This morning, we tried a morning vaccine clinic, and we had 13 COVID shots and 17 flu shots that were administered. And I want to thank the staff and others that made it possible. Next slide. This week is the last week of our back to school night events, and I want to acknowledge the creativity and resourcefulness that went into making these online events at the last moment. The events were interesting and full of information for our families in attendance. We do continue to notice that when we hold these online events, our attendance at these meetings are improved, and we are finding a lot of success with these events being online. Next slide. We do want to recognize our translators who are on today and every time we hold a meeting, our ASL translators, our Spanish language translators. September 30th is International Translator Day. This is the perfect moment for us to thank them. We have a wonderful, talented team of people working here in Santa Barbara Unified, and they do play such a critical role in helping us connect with families, serve our students, whether through an IEP meeting, translating important documents, or providing simultaneous interpretation at our back to school night events, PTSA, DLAC meetings, among others. We are so grateful to this dedicated, hardworking team. Also, October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. Dyslexia is one of the most common language-based learning disabilities. Between 5 to 10% of the population is estimated to have dyslexia, while 70 to 80% of those with reading difficulties are likely to have some form of dyslexia. This month, students, educators, and others across the nation are raising awareness and spotlighting a range of dyslexic needs, struggles, and signs. Next slide. This month, we also met with our Early Literacy Task Force, which is comprised of teachers, principals, community experts, and our Santa Barbara Ed Foundation representatives to discuss language and literacy across all grades. We will continue to meet to discuss our plan for language and literacy across all grades with an emphasis on our emergent multilingual students and our elementary students. We also had an opportunity, next slide, to meet with our Superintendent Advisory Task Force, which is also comprised of a variety of people from both inside our district and outside our district. We asked them to recommend future topics for our future meetings, and you'll see a list here of some of the topics that they'd like to hear more about from our meetings in the next coming months. The last group that I want to report that I met with was the Student Advisory Group, which is co-led by myself and our board member, Dawson Kelly. He'll let you know more about it when it's his turn to speak. But we did get a chance to hear from the students about what's working well in schools and also some challenges that they're facing as students as they hear from other of their peers. Next slide. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Desmond Ho, our new Operations and Sustainability Coordinator. We have not had a chance to have him speak. He'll go on in a few minutes. I know this team is getting him ready. Desmond's passion for education and sustainability began while leading campers on hikes and snorkels on Catalina Island, often encouraging campers to reduce their use of single-use plastics and save water with shorter showers. From Catalina, he attended and graduated with his master's from UCSB's Brent School of Environmental Science and Management. He has a long history of expertise in the areas of sustainability, education, outreach, and grant writing, and is an avid scuba diver. Yes, that is him in this photo. He comes to us from the Santa Barbara County Air Pollution District. Welcome, Desmond. Will you please say a few words to our board members?
Good evening, board members. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce myself. I'm very excited about this position, and I'm very much looking forward to reducing our district's environmental impacts and also saving the district money while doing so. I have been working with staff, teachers, students, and soliciting their ideas and also providing my inputs. I look forward to future board meetings where I will present some accomplishments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desmond, and welcome. And I know you've hit the ground running, and we really appreciate you being with us. Next slide. As you may recall, we passed a resolution last time we met that September 15th to October 15th is National Hispanic Heritage Month, or Latinx, Latina, Latino Month. Across the district, our campuses are recognizing the month in all kinds of creative ways. Live mariachi performances in the quad, Latinx book reports on display around campus, student groups organizing awareness campaigns, loteria games with prizes, library displays with Latinx authors and suggested titles, caballo dorado dancing and other activities at lunch. For those of you who don't know, the caballo dorado is a type of Mexican hustle dance to the Spanish version of My Achy Breaky Heart. It's a real easy dance to learn. It mixes a little bit of country western dancing with Spanish flavor. Some of you may know I do prefer to dance as my art form. This is a perfect segue to our student performer spotlight. Now, although you will be enjoying yet another form of dance that is seen all over the world, particularly in Spain, it has a huge following here in Santa Barbara. I'm going to ask Adriana to get our music ready while I introduce our flamenco dancers for this evening. Natalia Treviño, a 7th grader at La Cumbre, and Araceli Sagastume, a 7th grader at La Colina, have been dancing together since they were preschoolers. Along with performing all over Santa Barbara and the Los Angeles area, in 2019, they were invited with a small group of local dancers to perform at a prestigious flamenco festival in Jerez, Spain, where flamenco was born centuries ago around the gypsy campfires. They will perform a type of flamenco called jaleos to a song called Soniquete Ole. Natalia and Araceli, welcome. We're so excited to see you perform. Adriana, can you please confirm you're ready to play the music?
We are ready.
Thank you very much, Natalia, Araceli, and board members, please join me in also thanking their grandmother, Susie, who's here, who brought them with us, and I know has dedicated hours and hours to their craft, and we really appreciate you. Thank you, ladies, very much. And Board President, that concludes my report.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Dr. Maldonado. Thank you especially for the update on the wonderful activities underway for Hispanic Heritage Month. And on behalf of the board, I also want to thank you and your staff for our 4th student performance of flamenco. That was amazing, so inspiring. Not only the synchronicity of the movements, the footwork, but the attitude. That was just what I think this board needed. Also, thank you so much to Anna Pilhofer and welcome Desmond Ho. So before we go back to board comments and correspondence, I'd like to move right into our report, the COVID-19 report number 28. And with that, I will turn this over to Dr. Wagener.
All right, good evening, board. President Ford, Superintendent Maldonado. My mic is on. Yeah, I just need to use my assistant principal voice. So I bring to you today board report number 28. Pardon me while I get my notes up here. All right, next slide, please. So, as always, our key factors that we look at are important. They help us keep focused on what it is we need to do, as COVID is consistently presenting us with challenging problems, and we need to keep focused on the research, the science, the community transmission, vaccinations, our comprehensive testing program, and looking to where we can receive oversight and support. Next slide, please. So Susan Klein Rothschild is not able to be with us today, but I do want to share with you some county public health updates. And this is from today's released information. That is really good news on the right-hand side. Do you see that? Moving down, Delta and the other variants that we have in the district, the rate is dropping. And right now we are approaching where we were kind of midsummer in July, when we were feeling better about things. We're not quite there yet, and that doesn't mean that we loosen up, but that just means that we double down on exactly what we have been doing, focusing on our mitigation efforts, including the wearing of the masks, the washing of hands, distancing when it is appropriate and required, etc. I have another slide for you. Next slide, please. So public health, in terms of their vaccination or our vaccination rates as a county, I think it's important to compare the county to what we're achieving here in the district. You can see there that of the eligible in the county, it has gone up. So we're at 68% of those who are eligible are fully vaccinated. Approaching 77% are partially vaccinated or fully vaccinated. And you can see the total number of administered doses there. When we say vaccinated, we're talking about individuals in the county who are ages 12 and up. But that number on the left, the 57.8%, that includes those under the age of 12. Next slide, please. So our next slide takes us to our own data. And as a reminder to the board and those who are listening at home, This is now available on our website. If you go on our website to the landing page on the far left-hand side, there's an orange arrow. It says COVID information. You click that, and this will come up. It's updated every Friday. And so the data that I'm showing you here is for last week. We had 9 students who tested positive and 2 staff members. That brings us to a total of 58 students who have tested positive since August 16th and 21 staff members. At this time, that number has actually gone up, and I'm going to show you that data in a moment, but 88.5% of our staff are fully vaccinated at this time. We continue to be very happy and proud of that information. I do want to say that one more comparison piece of data is that we ran the calculations to figure out the case rate in the district versus that of the county. During the same 7-day time frame, we saw an average daily case rate of 11.3 cases per 100,000, while at the same time the county had an average daily case rate of 13. So we're just below that of the county. Now, I do want to say 13 is where we were when we were in the orange and shooting for the yellow. We needed to get below 11 back in the spring when we were wanting to go to yellow. And so that's where we are. And that would be the adjusted case rate. Trying to give folks perspective on what seems like a lifetime ago sometimes, but also keep hope while still staying safe. Next slide, please. So now to look at some data on our vaccination status. What I'm bringing to you now is adjusted from what I gave you 2 weeks ago. This now reflects the board resolution related to vaccination and gives you some information there. So as of this morning, nearly 90% of our staff had their full vaccination verified in this district. That's excellent news. Another 3.1% or 51 individuals have begun their vaccination or will begin their vaccination soon and have verified that they will do so. We also have, as a result of the resolution, 3.9% of our staff requesting an exemption or a deferral of the vaccination requirement. Another 0.3% or 5 individuals requesting unpaid leave or resignation and will not be vaccinated. And then another 6 who have actively declined to respond to our request. So that is as of about noon today. Next slide, please. So our student vaccination report shows that 23% of our students ages 12 and up have uploaded a vaccination record to ARIES. 77% have not yet responded. So our schools have begun reaching out to families to provide them with a reminder, but also to provide assistance to them as needed so that they can upload their vaccination report. Now, identifying which students have been vaccinated does help us when a positive case occurs, because those who are vaccinated do not need to quarantine in any way if they are a close contact. They don't go on a modified quarantine, and they certainly are not required to quarantine at home if they've been exposed in school. In addition, only those who are vaccinated may attend indoor school events such as arts performances or athletics without a recent negative COVID-19 test. And I know that we have received inquiries from primarily parents asking why we're asking for the vaccination proof. And this is why, because it helps us in our identifying who we need to put in quarantine and who does not need to be in quarantine. Next. Okay, so next, moving on to elementary students, we have over the last few weeks, our elementary schools have completed the first round of surveillance testing. The first round took longer than we expected because at the same time the schools were testing, we were also working with families to sign them up in the CDPH testing platform known as Color. Now that 75% of our families have completed this process, the next round of surveillance testing, which begins October 4th, we're taking a week off, should be completed in a shorter period of time. And I appreciate the work of our elementary school administrators and their teams who have taken on this big responsibility while at the same time attending to positive cases and completing their regularly assigned duties. Next slide. So what did we find through our first round of surveillance testing? In total, 2,384 elementary students were tested during those 2 weeks. Of those 2,000 plus students, 11 or 0.05% tested positive. That is much lower than a symptomatic testing rate is. So 11 students, and that was the purpose of doing surveillance testing, was to identify students who were in school and were positive and provide them with validating test through a PCR test and then get them medical attention. Next slide. So last board meeting, we began the practice of bringing state and national COVID news to you that connects with the work of the district. The first piece of news for this meeting is that the FDA did authorize the Pfizer booster dose for those who are 65 and older, as well as those ages 16 to 64 who are at a greater risk of contracting COVID-19 while at work. Now, obviously, healthcare workers fall into this category. Congregate care workers are also receiving this. But there is some speculation that educators may also be deemed to fall into this category, which would mean that educators who had received the Pfizer vaccine could be eligible for this booster. Those who received Moderna or Johnson & Johnson would not be eligible for this booster. Second, during the week of September 9th through the 16th, children in the United States represented almost 26% of the COVID-19 cases in our country. So again, approaching 1/3 of the cases. And finally, news that many are watching, Pfizer BioNTech announced that there were positive top-line results from their trial of the COVID-19 vaccine in children ages 5 to 11 years. There's been no action moving forward on that vaccine, simply that the first round of results came out and they appear to be positive. And with that, I will now open it up to questions or comments from the board.
Thank you so much for this really valuable information. Just reminding the board that this is a report item only, and there will be no action taken tonight regarding anything having to do with COVID-19. I know we do have questions and comments, but we also have public comments. So please go ahead.
Thank you, President Ford. We have 4 public comments on this item. I will list all 4. Amy Smith, Justin Shores, Sharon Jacotka, and Claudia Henry. Amy Smith, you are up first. Can we please get the timer on our screen? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Yes, I actually am Dr. Amy Smith. I have a PhD from MIT, and I'm very concerned about the lack of quality of science and scientific evidence being used to make sweeping decisions that affect all kinds of families in our community, students, everybody, on the basis of a claim, a statement that is not verified and backed up with evidence by our public health officer, Dr. Ansor. He claims that there is an epidemic of the unvaccinated based on some charts. He does not talk about whether one sample is being, or one group is being surveyed more systematically than the other. The fact that there's false positives with the test that would inflate the number in one community. And overall, let's look at, we have so few cases, and the flu also kills people. We have higher rates of flu, and school is open, and people's rights are not taken away, and they are not driven out of their jobs. It is just completely insane. I just cannot even understand how you've gotten so out of touch with your community. Perhaps it's because we're stuck out here in the parking lot and we're not allowed to come in and look you in the face and bring you back to reason. So the Constitution that you took an oath to uphold is for our individual rights. Our individual privacy is part of that. Our medical choices are not yours. Coercing people into a vaccine that is not effective and getting less effective by the day as the virus evolves around the effectiveness of the narrowly targeted vaccine immunity and leaving the natural immunity more effective, and you are ignoring all of that evidence. How are we supposed to trust you? It's very, very disturbing. And I hope that you realize that because you are people who live in this community, that you look at the faces of the people who you are pushing out of their jobs if they refuse to be coerced and forced into a genetically engineered technology that has no long-term safety profile, whose impact you do not know for the future. And what we heard is you're considering doing this to children, and you have no idea what it will do to them either. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Justin Shores.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So obviously we would love to be in there at the table with you guys, working this out, using real discourse instead of just being told that this is the right way to do it. We've been watching this for months, obviously 18 months now, obeying everything that we're being told by the federal government. We put our masks on, we take our masks off, we distance, we don't distance. We're all over the place. Guess what? It seems like whatever you're doing is not working. It's been 18 months. We've done what you've asked, but it's not working. And now you want to just throw a vaccine in and force us all with no other option, with no long-term data. You guys are here to just do what you're told by your party, and we can see that. Party politics should not have any place in education, in health. You guys need to stop. Anyone in town, look at these ladies, look at these people here that are making this decision. They're gleefully just putting shots in people's arms just because they're being told to do it. Kate Ford looks like she just got a promotion in the Democratic Party. She's so happy. Kate Ford, how much did it cost? Your soul? This is horrible, ladies. You need to wake up, stop playing party politics, stop looking at everything that's not your narrative as misinformation. Open up your mind, look at the medical reports, This needs to end now, please, please. And community, if these ladies do not change in the next 6 weeks, if they push this on our kids, stand up. Do not let them get in office again.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Jacotka.
Hello. Apparently there is a conflict of interest here, Laura Capps. You said on Newsmakers with Jerry Roberts the following, that you have a child in the district, and if your child is in a classroom with a teacher who is unvaxxed, you have no idea knowing. To me, as a parent, that is wrong. This is a conflict of personal interest. What about the many parents who are against this experimental gene therapy? You said you're the voice for the community. Do you have proof that the unvaccinated population is infecting everyone? Will you please provide that for the community? Also, please report hospitalizations and deaths for both vaccinated and unvaccinated. There was a safety report published by the Federal Institute for Vaccines and Biomedicines in Germany stating adverse effects following COVID vaccination in children aged 12 to 17 has now exceeded the total number of COVID-related hospitalizations for children. By comparison, the total number of children 12 to 17 who were admitted to the hospital for COVID between March 2020 and July 2021 is 1,225. In other words, within just 3 months, the number of cases of vaccinated children suffering from potential vaccine-related adverse effects exceeded the number of COVID-related hospitalizations within the same age group over a period of 16 months. Are you listening? This new data seems to indicate that more children are suffering from the vaccine meant to protect them from COVID than from the virus itself. The most serious adverse effects reported are heart diseases such as myocarditis and pericarditis, serious health conditions such as thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, and the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Can you prove that vaccination stopped transmission? The CDC admits it does not. What is the value of vaccinating children? You have all walks of life out here right now. Come outside and talk to us. You cannot coerce us with $300 Amazon cards, Dodger tickets, or beer, as you said, Laura. These are our God-given kids, and we have been God-ordained to train them in the way they should go and to protect them from the evils of this world. And over my living and breathing body, you will not touch my children. We pay your salary. You need to listen to us. We pay your salary. We pray for this building that you're in right now, and we deserve the right to be in there so that you can hear us parents. You have to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Claudia Henry.
Hello, thank you for listening to us. We do have a problem. Many parents and teachers don't feel like you're listening to them. The more that we talk and we try to dispel different rumors and get to the truth, we work very hard, but we see that the questions are not being answered. The more that happens, the more we think you are pushing forward an agenda that has scientifically supported reasoning that is faulty. We want to talk more with you about the science. Lieutenant Colonel Teresa Long, her affidavit was submitted to you. She's in charge of the health recommendations for 4,000 military pilots. The affidavit, she's a military surgeon. It's made under the penalty of perjury. She is more credentialed and has more frontline experience than any of us here. I'm wondering if you can discuss this with your board members and ask Dr. Ansborg to provide a rebuttal to this expert recommendation, complete with supporting documents. We really need the school district to be as good as this surgeon. Otherwise, we will be lost and confused and thinking you're not sharing the truth with us. And the truth is, we all think there's risk. And we need, where there is risk, that the teachers and the students and the staff need to have choice. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. President Ford, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morales. Board members, do you have any further comments or questions about this report? Ms. Alvarez, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wagener. On slide number 8, the testing consent, it shows 862 no consent. Are those answers that we have received and they say no, or are we waiting for those responses?
Thank you for that question. No. So the no consent either means they've said no or they have not yet responded. So we have not been able to pull those out yet, though at the next board meeting, I should be able to give you that information.
Thank you.
Ms. Capps, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. Thank you, team. I just had a couple of questions about the student vaccine records and what we can do to understand more about those students who've been vaccinated. And I appreciate you outlined all of the reasons why it's helpful to know, but I'm just wondering how we understand more information about who's vaccinated, who's not in terms of student population, or at least the numbers, not trying to identify individuals. Et cetera.
I do not have that broken down by age range. What I can tell you is that is a mixture of high school, junior high, and I think 3 or 4 12-year-olds who are in the 6th grade and they've already turned 12. So they're, but we don't have it broken down by percentage at this. I don't have that data right now, but I can bring it next time or send that to the board separately so that you can have that.
Well, I just want to more emphasize how important that information is, not necessarily to verify that vaccination, although I understand for your purposes, it's important to verify their vaccination status. But for me, to understand sort of how many students have been vaccinated already, they've made that choice with their families, et cetera, as we think about the future and we understand sort of our student population, what the attitudes are towards this vaccine.
I think there's the fact that we only have 23% submitted is not indicative of what we're seeing when a case breaks out. And so that's what the principals are working on now, is looking at, how do we work with families to get more of these uploaded? Is it an issue of having problems with the process? Is it an issue with just forgetting because life is very busy? For some, is it an issue of wanting to guarantee that their child's medical records are safe with us? And I always like to remind families, you have to you have to provide vaccination records in order to enroll in school. And so the same privacy that we use for, TDAP goes for COVID. And so we need to just educate our families more about that. And then some folks believe that medical records should be private. And so schools are having that conversation with the families.
Thank you. And I appreciate you making that. Again, I think it's always important to underscore of how many vaccinations every child in our school district currently already has and has to provide that information. We just need to remember that as we're talking about this very challenging topic. My second question is about the surveillance test. Thank you for those results. I'm curious if there was, not naming any schools or anything like that that would break confidentiality, but if there were any lessons learned from, that's the point of a surveillance test, is to sort of take the surveillance and see, do we need to do testing more at one school, one class, one grade, Again, not asking for specifics, but just wondering if you
No.
gleaned that kind of information.
No, nothing jumped out at us in terms of like, whoa, we have a problem at this school or in this grade or in this area. That nothing has concerned us in that way. It's been isolated cases at a variety of schools.
And so the approach still on testing is to complete the surveillance test for every student, which we've done now roughly 3,000 of the roughly 13,000. Is that accurate?
We've done 2348, I believe was the number of
Okay.
elementary students.
Right.
In the coming, they will begin testing again next week and do another round of surveillance testing. We'll continue this as long as the numbers of cases are significant in the county. But we will be beginning with our secondary students to do surveillance testing with those students as well in the coming weeks. And so now we'll be shifting. We got a shipment of 16,000 tests in. I think I reported to you that we were short on tests. We got 16,000 tests in, and we have ordered another 27,000 tests. Just in case there's another shortage, we'll have plenty to continue doing the surveillance testing as long as we need to.
Thank you. And my last point was just to clarify what the numbers that you demonstrated. It appears as though that at least 50, if not more like 150 employees have been vaccinated since last week. Is that accurate? That we went from 85% to 88, but then another 3% are partway through.
Yes, and so that number represents a variety of folks who began the vaccination process, folks who had been in process but then completed the process, and then individuals who had not yet responded to our request for information and now have responded. So it's a mixture of those three.
But my math is about right. It's
about right.
It's about 150.
Mhm.
So that's, I just want to thank those employees and moving in the right direction here. And that means good things for our schools. So thank you very much.
Mr. Kelly, please.
First, thank you and your team for your work. This is a great update. I have one question regarding the employee vaccination status statistics. So it says 3.9% requesting exemption. Could you walk me through like how the exemption process works in terms of like requesting and then evaluating exceptions?
Yeah, I think I'll ask Dr. Becchio to come up and explain that because that's an HR process.
Good evening, board members. Good evening. Thank you for the question. So what happens is a employee may request an exemption, either a religious, medical. There's also a deferral, which means that the employee may have a reason which they can't get the vaccine for a week or 2 weeks. And so that would be another short-term exemption. And the way that we will walk through that process is the employee will send in a form. And in the case of a medical exemption or a deferral, they'll also include a doctor's note. And we go through an interactive reasonable accommodation process with them. And we have to make a determination of whether we can provide a reasonable accommodation or not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Munoz, please.
I just wanted to thank you, Fran, for the report and the work by everyone to make this possible in terms of gathering the information about students, vaccinations, and employees. And I also thank all the work that has been done to make vaccinations available to the students at the school sites at different hours of the day. You know, with everyone with busy schedules and such, it's great to have that there. And then also for that conversation to happen, you know, with their parents and or grandparents or guardians, you know, should I get a vaccination? I got one, you know, and so forth. So I really am appreciative of that and can only see that we're going to be increasing the numbers voluntarily. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz. I do want to say I didn't highlight the vaccination clinics in this week's report, but those are going, and Dr. Maldonado did, but we're also, I want to say we're offering, the flu shots are being offered there as well, which I'm already hearing is going to be very important this year, so.
Thank you. I just have a couple comments. One, I do think there is cause for celebration of the rising number of staff members that are vaccinated. I'm very cheered to hear that. I also greatly appreciate not only the specific data that you've given us, but also you and your team and your efforts to problem solve and find ways, for example, to find out of the 4,062 students who are aged 12 to 17, how many have been vaccinated, plan to be vaccinated, and what the real numbers, and yet to have reported it. So I really am very grateful for that. I also really appreciate, as I'm sure the rest of the board does, and Ms. Capps, I think, mentioned it, the percentage of elementary surveillance testing that has already been completed. We knew that this would be a mighty task, so thank you. And I continue to be concerned with the sobering fact that 26% of cases nationally are young students. And so what we are attempting to do is to address this and keep our students safe. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please, Dr. Maldonado.
I just want to close by saying a special thank you to our school site leaders, our principals, our assistant principals who have been tasked with much of this lift. Of course, with the leadership of Dr. Wagener, Dr. Becchio, and others on cabinet. But I do want to recognize how much they have been working, and I just don't want it to be missed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So board members, now we'll go back to your comments and correspondence. And I would like to start out tonight by congratulating two classified retirees tonight. First of all, Christella Campbell, who is a special education para at Monroe Elementary, is retiring with 19 plus years of service. And also Maria Teresa Ponce, Administrative Secretary, third class for maintenance and operations. She retires with 26 plus years of service. So Maria and Christella, on behalf of this board, we wish you a wonderful retirement filled with much deserved rest, good health, and plenty of fun. And now I'd like to invite my board colleagues to share their comments and correspondence. Mrs. Munoz.
Thank you. Thank you, President Ford. I guess tonight I just want to look at the positive and appreciate everyone here, you know, with the school district and such. I'm surrounded by art from our children. What could be more wonderful, and the talent of the young ladies that performed their dance for us and such. And it just reminds me of why we're here. I also want to say that we did have a board retreat this past weekend, and I appreciated everyone's participation on giving up their day, you know, Mr. Vance and Dr. Maldonado and our wonderful Adriana with us there, and in addition to Adam Herrera, I believe, who was there, our technical expertise. And just, you know, that we spent the day in terms of coming together as a board, trying to look at what we have done and what work we have to do. So that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Sims-Moten, please.
Yes, thank you, President Ford. And I would just add on a little bit about our retreat. I enjoyed, you know, working with our sister board members on that day. And we also took, I guess, kind of like a personality, not necessarily. We were drivers, or were we analysts? And our president certainly is a driver. I say that with appreciation and love. So
thank you.
I just appreciated, you know, getting to know each other better. We're not, you know, and you going through challenging times now in terms of this. So it's so good to be able to know who we are and how we support each other through this. And so we're better leaders for that. So I just want to appreciate the time that we spent together. Also want to welcome Desmond Ho. So looking forward to things that he will be doing with regards to the sustainability And also, I appreciated the journey that the young folks, the young women who danced with us tonight. And I especially appreciate that they started at preschool. You know, they started their journey there, and you really did. And you really were taken on a journey. You could see it in, as President Ford said, their attitude. It just, I was ready to get down there with them, but you know, that would be a big thing to do. So I just want to share my appreciation, also to just echo the comments of board member Munoz. Like, look at the positive, what we can do, the work that we're doing. We know these are challenging times, and sometimes it's so easy to look at the negative side, but really, what can we look at on a positive? That our students are safe. Everyone's doing their part to make sure that we're all safe, and we continue to have our students in person. And lastly, I would say, like, with regards to Dr. Wagner, with regards to, thank you for your report, and also that the flu shots are there. And I'm just wondering if I could come to one of the sites and get a flu shot, just to show my, okay. Yeah, everybody
Wonderful.
can come. Okay. Yeah, so if I'll talk to you offline as to where it needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims Moten, and Ms. Capps, please.
Yeah, I would also like to welcome Desmond Ho to this position of Operations and Sustainability Coordinator. It's got such an impressive resume. I know that this board was instrumental in the creation of that position, and I'm just excited to see what he will do with it. And I understand he's already up and running. So, and also want to connect him to our Sustainability Committee, which is teachers, parents, students, and staff. So we need to get that up and running soon, and welcome him to that fold. On correspondence, I just want to thank the members of the public, teachers, parents, students even, who've written in with such thoughtful notes about this very controversial, unfortunately controversial topic of vaccines. And it's been a lot of good exchanges, and I just want to say thank you for that meaningful correspondence. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Alvarez.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge and a big thank you to all the site administrators, all the staff that are working so extremely hard, getting the testing, the surveillance, the tracing, and everything else that was already mentioned. So thank you very much for doing that. And also a big thank you to Principal Jennifer Foster and Sonia Amaral, and MTSS TOSA, Maureen Granger, for spearheading the transformation of the garden at La Colina. This ties perfectly with our initiatives, with our MTSS initiatives, with our environmental stewardship, the sustainability. And thank you to Mr. Vance, Mr. Vizzolini for being there. I look forward to see that partnership, that collaboration, and that what's going to turn out to be such an educational opportunity for our junior high and high school students. So I want to say thank you for that. And also thank you, Dr. Maldonado. Thank you, President Ford, for starting our meeting with such celebrations. It's so wonderful to showcase that talent that we have in the district, and to also talk about the positive things that are happening. Our kids, our students continue to go to school every day. They're learning, they're happy, and we keep learning ourselves to see how we can make it better and add more layers of protection. Thank you to those employees who have turned in their vaccination status, and we hope to see those numbers grow. We hope that at the next meeting, we could be at 95% or more. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll just echo a lot of the same positivity that we see in this district. And if anyone is counting, this is the 4th board meeting in 9 days. And I must also share my respect for the dedicated and hardworking board, superintendent, and team who make all of that happen. Yes, we have continued to receive numerous email correspondence, and both in favor of and against our resolution, which was approved on the 23rd. And again, I'm very grateful for this correspondence. It helps us become more knowledgeable and reflective. I attended 2 more back to school nights, Goleta Valley Junior High and Harding University Partnership School. And hats off to the principals, the staff, and the parents too, for presenting important information and ensuring that, as Dr. Maldonado said, even virtually, back to school nights are packed with information, important information, and they are inspiring. I also should mention that I regularly attend the Circle of Trust board meetings of Santa Barbara Charter School, and they are doing great things there too. I also had a terrific visit with Dr. Brock at La Cumbre Junior High School, and it is no joke. La Cumbre Junior High School is rising. And with that, I move to subject number 8, which is the student board member report. And now, student board member, Mr. Kelly, what would you like to share with us tonight?
So first off, Dr. Maldonado and I had our student advisory council, which was very insightful. It was great to have direct feedback from the students, and they echoed a lot of the opinions I had, but some of the things I wasn't made aware of. So it was great to hear that, especially in a group setting where we could collaborate and talk about what was happening and see if it was the same across the 4 different high school campuses. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things I got out of it is just communicating better with students why we are doing the certain things that are put in place, such as Crisis Go. There's a lot of confusion around that. So I think a huge thing that we need to work on moving forward is communicating the reasons why we are doing what we are doing, and just having them know that it's coming from a good place, because it's easy for them to just write off what we are doing and assume the worst. Another thing I've been focusing on is connecting with students directly. So I've been calling students throughout the week that I know from different schools and just asking them what they want, what they need, and what they think should be changed about their education. So I've just been calling students and saying, talk to me, so that's been great. Hopefully I can get more contacts from students that I haven't already talked to in real life. So I'll be working on that. And then another thing is social media. I hope to get a student board member Instagram account so I can really connect and communicate with the students. It's a huge way to connect and get them engaged. So I could do Instagram polls or link like the public comment forum. I think it would be really helpful to get them all engaged, and hopefully we can get more student public comments at board meetings. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. I will say that you're a role model of outreach for all of us, and also the question about why. It's important that everyone understands why, so thank you for bringing that up. And now, board members, will move to subject number 9, which is the opportunity for comments from the public about items that are not on the agenda for this evening. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes each tonight. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Morales for these public comments.
Thank you, President Ford. We have 14 speakers signed up for this item. I will list the first 5. Justin Shores, Nathaniel Thompson, Caitlin Thompson, Christy Lozano, and Paul Rooney. Justin Shores, you are up first.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask if you guys could make some accommodations for people that are trying to speak at your meetings but don't have the technology or the ability to just do a Zoom. One thing you could do would be to put either a microphone outside, so it could be socially distanced, or you could just provide some station to where people can come and speak, because there's other boards that are doing that, and it's really bad that at this point, after 18 months, you guys are still hiding in there. You're fully vaccinated. You've made incredible life-changing decisions without any discourse. This needs to be a public forum. We need to be at the table. You need to start listening to some of our things, at least. Give us something. Work with us in some way. Make us feel like we're at least human. Because at this point, you're just locking us out, ignoring us, doing just what you want to do. That's not how it works. This is a public area. You are a public school. This isn't Laura Capps University. This isn't Kate Ford Elementary School. You guys need to realize that you are here for the people. The people are wanting to talk. We want to be at the table. So let us come in. Let's work out these incredibly difficult decisions together. So you're not having us coming after you with lawsuits, with recalls, with everything we can because of your lack of empathy, your lack of compassion, your lack of caring. You just are slamming through legislation to remove discourse. Let's change that. Bring us to the table. Stop the party politics.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nathaniel Thompson.
Hello, my name is Nate Thompson. I'm a math teacher, and I spoke on Thursday as well. I don't have a prepared statement that I'm going to try to rush off in 90 seconds like I did on Thursday. I'm just going to speak to the hurt that I feel from the school board. I felt that the way the school board went about coming up with this mandate was deceitful. There was a closed door meeting on Monday to write up the mandate with a preconceived notion of how the vote would go. There was no communication out to anybody, any stakeholder, other than the bare minimum of posting it on the website for the special meeting on Thursday. This is something that people care passionately about. And I was very, very disappointed that the stakeholders were not informed of this. Had it been on a normal school board meeting, that would have made a lot more sense. But the way it went about it did not speak to integrity. And I want to trust you. I believe I should give respect to people because of their position. I believe everyone deserves respect because of their position. And then I find that I will feel disrespected, or I will lose my respect for people when they have disrespected me and have not earned that anymore. Trust is another one of those things that's earned. And I've got to say that you have a long ways to go into earning a lot of people's trust back. You say that you're doing this to help prevent the spread. Then just be honest and acknowledge that vaccinated people spread COVID. They do. Why are the numbers higher in terms of positive tests for the unvaccinated? It's because you're just testing the unvaccinated staff. That it's like simple. And so if you want to truly be trusted, I suggest you start by being transparent. You want us to trust that you're doing this for the kids? Be transparent. Give us the information we want. People are asking for where you're getting your data. Be honest. Have honest conversations with people about this. Be willing to go back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Caitlin Thompson. Caitlin Thompson is not online. Our next speaker is Christy Lozano.
I'm one of the teachers that you are mandating the vaccine for, and I had some questions for HR yesterday morning that I sent them. I got an email from you guys today saying that if you have questions, send questions. Mine have been sitting in HR's inbox for 36 hours. I have yet to receive a response. You guys talk about mental health all the time, yet you are causing mental health problems to employees and to kids and to everybody in this district. The manipulative strategies that you guys are using, I see you. I see them. I see the perception. You know, when Matsuoka came in, he gave perception studies all the time, not to fix the problem, just to fix the perception. And that's what you do. You go to I hear the board members talking and I hear lying. Every week I hear lies and lies and lies, and it's the perception that you want to give the public. And as long as you can hold that perception, they take it in and they believe it, then you've got the power. And that needs to stop. You told us that mandates were going to be enforced on Friday, and now you've changed the date. That's like a perpetrator beating a victim and then giving him a meal afterwards. That's called Stockholm Syndrome. You have betrayed us, and I believe you will reap what you sow, and you will sow betrayal. There are skeletons in the closet that need to come out. And I am appealing to teachers and staff and parents and students that know about the skeletons. And I am suggesting that you bring them out of the closet. You don't keep them hiding. For teachers at La Cumbre that were sexually harassed by the custodian, you need to speak up and you need to talk about it, because Roosevelt teachers are going to be at risk because they swept it under the carpet and they sent the guy over there. And for anybody, the affairs that are going on in the district between admin and teachers, those need to come out too. And any kids that have been affected sexually or anything else, those need to come out too. You know, I worked at Cleveland School, and you know what the union president told me last year? She said, Cleveland is where teachers go to die. She says it's the graveyard of teachers. I said, really? Because I worked there. You know what? There's going to be flowers in my end of the cemetery, because I'm not a teacher who's dead. I'm a teacher who's alive. And you guys, this is a game, and the game needs to stop, and people need to come out and be bold and speak up and speak their mind and tell their truth.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Paul Rooney.
Mute. Good evening, dear board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As changes happen daily and legal battles increase over these current challenges, why not ease the pain of division and get in touch with our moral compasses and with a rational decision, not sell out the long-term, hardworking, dedicated employees and not succumb to pressures from above. Do the right thing and allow the choice for all our members, vaccinated and unvaccinated, the ability to stop being divided by these unsure times. Please give our staff members, whether they're administration, teachers, or my classified sisters and brothers, full autonomy of the freedom of choice, as you have also that freedom of choice. I would like to request that you provide me with all the reports and data you are basing your mandate on. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 5 speakers are Carolina Bate, Sky Byron, Dr. Amy Smith, Ann Thomas, and Maria Kessner. Carolina Bate, you are up next.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, board members and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. This presentation is a reminder that we cannot forget about the damage being quietly done by comprehensive sexual curriculums being taught to children. Around the state, these dangerous curriculums continue unstopped. If you saw a person in a library, shopping mall, or any other public place reading from those texts and telling kids to look at those pictures and try doing all these sexual things, you would call the police and that person would be put in jail. Aren't public schools public places too? Encouraging kids and immature young adults to engage in sexual behaviors and experiment with becoming different genders is like telling them it's okay to play with fire. As adults, we know darn well this is wrong and very dangerous for children and young adults who are going to get hurt badly emotionally, psychologically, and physically hurt, scarred with memories and experiences that will be with them for the rest of their lives. A better way to teach our kids and young people is to focus them on their book reports, basketball or football games, or science fair project, math test, band instrument. There are a million other things they could be doing during their short and precious childhood learning years. For example, how about a special science fair project studying viruses? Name the different parts of a virus. How are viruses different from cells? What is DNA? What is RNA? And how are they different? What is the role of mRNA during transcription? List the different types of graphs and sketch an example of how data is collected and analyzed. Students may use colored pencils to make their graphs easier to read. There are so many beautiful and fascinating things to learn and understand in the natural world, enough to fill up more than an entire lifetime of studying. Being ignorant is a curse. However, teaching kids harmful things is doing them a terrible disservice and is a million times worse. When you vote, ask yourself, do I know this person's opinion about the sexual curriculums in our schools? Should I vote for them? We need to be helping our students, not hurting them. And that starts with thinking carefully about the person for whom you vote. Thank you for being willing to consider these perspectives.
Time. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sky Byron.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed my opportunity to speak last week about the school staff vaccine mandate due to my poor cell connection. And that's what I wanted to speak on today. To mandate the COVID shot for Santa Barbara school staff is to mandate the most dangerous medical product in the history of medicine. As of September 17, the US's vaccine adverse event reporting system shows over 15,000 deaths and over 860,000 injuries following COVID injections in just 9 months of use. It is well known that adverse events following all vaccines are grossly underreported, and they are likely even more underreported after COVID shots, if we believe the whistleblower testimony of nurses and frontline workers who say they are under tremendous pressure to not report injuries or deaths. But even based on those underreported numbers, the VAERS data shows a 1,000% increase in adverse events following vaccination compared to all previous vaccines in prior years. And what might the true number of US deaths be? Well, at the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, Steve Kirsch, the executive director of the COVID-19 Early Treatment Fund, gave testimony. These are the words that he began his comments with. I'm going to focus my remarks today with the elephant in the room that nobody likes to talk about, that the vaccines kill more people than they save. Steve Kirsch went on to show that expert analysis of Pfizer trial and VAERS data prove that the shots kill more people than they allegedly save. Quote, about 411 deaths per million doses. That translates into about 150,000 people have died, end quote. And that's just in the US, just from the Pfizer shot. If this expert analysis is correct, it means that millions have already died worldwide over the last 9 months from these shots. These are the dangerous medical products you were talking about mandating for Santa Barbara school staff. Medical products that do not stop infection, do not stop transmission, and don't even consistently work to do what they were designed to do, which is to reduce symptoms. I'm guessing most of us here know a vaccinated person who has gotten sick with COVID, perhaps even very sick. I know several. And if we look to highly vaccinated Israel, Iceland, or the UK, we can clearly see the vaccine's failures. Why would you coerce your precious Santa Barbara school staff into taking such a risk with their health and life for a failing product? Any resulting injuries or deaths of staff will be on this board's hands. Are you okay with that? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Smith.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm very concerned that these policies are being promoted for the purpose of coercing people into an untested, no long-term safety profile technology for the medical industry and their profit motives and their future planning, and not for public safety, for public health, or for any interest other than for these kinds of agendas. There's also the agenda to be able to create the default that we do not have the presumption of health when we walk into a store. If we have a job, if we want to be a student, we have the presumption of being diseased until either submitting to the technology that is not proven to work or getting tested, which is a test that's also proven to generate very high rates of false positives and confounding results with other material that's not actually SARS-CoV-2. So this whole thing is really based on dishonest science. The people who are critical in these fields are ignored, are vilified, are slandered, and are fired from their positions. They are punished. These teachers who are being pushed out with this new vaccination requirement, if they don't manage to get a religious exemption or a medical exemption, which are very hard to get because the vaccine industry has made sure of that, they will be on unpaid leave. So if this was just an unfortunate thing you had to do for public health, why is it punitive? Why are you punishing people? Why aren't you just saying, well, we have to do this, but we're still going to keep paying you because this is just an unfortunate thing and we want to keep you here. Maybe you can teach some people online or something. So these kind of things that don't add up make us not really trust that your motives are for something other than these schools and this community and our health. How come you let a young man come and play the saxophone, which is supposed to be very dangerous? You know, woodwind instruments and singing are supposed to be the most dangerous ways to spread, even though the asymptomatic spread of the unvaccinated does not seem to be well documented. So you allowed that, but we are not allowed to come in because we disagree with you and we are being punished. And that is not how a democracy works. And that is not how freedom of speech works. And that is not how public access works. So now you're choosing to coerce people. Well, I'm not gonna be able to finish that point, but I will leave it there. And I just know that more and more people are noticing that this is not adding up, and you will have to account for these choices that you've done against us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ann Thomas.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Dear Superintendent Maldonado and members of the school board, I'm calling today to denounce the theatrical show that you put on last Thursday at the special board meeting. This meeting was just a farce. It was fully staged, complete with prearranged statement from the local public health department, Congressman Salud Carvajal, State Senator Monique Limon, and Supervisor Das William, and a 3-page statement that went out through Parent Square minutes after the meeting was concluded. How did they all have the time to do this when teachers and parents barely got any ahead notification of this special meeting? This show also included massive outcry from the community with a crushing number of public comments opposed to the resolution and only a handful of people in support. It did not matter though. You had already made up your mind ahead of time. This was all for show. You decided to approve a resolution that will give an illusion to protect the kids, when in fact, all you're doing is coercing teachers to get vaccinated, holding their livelihood in the balance. You also do not care that kids are about to lose some of their amazing teachers and have their school year and education greatly disturbed once again, thanks to your senseless resolution. Instead of being so heavy-handed on the teachers, implement measures that make sense. Test all the teachers regularly, vaccinated or not, so that you can catch any infected individual. Focusing on the non-vaccinated teachers and staff will make you ignore all the vaccinated ones showing up at school every day that could be asymptomatic yet infect kids in the classroom. The second issue I would like to bring up to you is the plan announced through the media by board member Laura Katz and President Kate Ford that they also want to mandate vaccines for school kids. The community does not want vaccine mandates. Here is an indication of it. Last week, a petition started circulating asking parents to support a vaccine mandate. So far, only a paltry 76 people have signed it. In contrast, a second local petition opposing a school kid vaccination mandate gathered over, wait for this, 1,300 signatures in just one day since yesterday. Parents do not want a vaccine mandate for their kids, even though the parents themselves might already be vaccinated. You're already doing a great job at keeping the kids in the school and the virus out. We've already gone over the worst of the Delta wave, which is now on a steady decline. Let's celebrate this success instead of coming down so hard on teachers, staff, and students. There is no need to be so heavy-handed and push teachers out of jobs and kids out of the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maria Kessner.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I wanted to make some loose comments on last week's meeting, but I want to start out with saying this is the biggest power grab in human history. As I said, my home country, the Netherlands, instituted the QR code that will create a total control society with a social credit score. And COVID-19 is being used as the pretext to rein in this tyranny. And it is all built in already in the infrastructure bill here in the US. Here it's called not the Great Reset, but the Green New Deal. And I wanted to make some loose comments. Jacobson versus Massachusetts, that sole Supreme Court ruling, actually conviction was held up for a $5 fine. So it wasn't that this Jacobson guy was forced inoculation. I just wanted to make that sure because it wasn't mentioned by your legal counsel. Also, the California Constitution, Article 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 1, Universal Citation. All people are by nature free and independent of inalienable rights. Among these, enjoying and defending life, liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. If you have an inalienable right, the government is to uphold and protect it. That right does not come from government. Number 2, students have a right under California state law to a medical or personal belief. See text section 3, section 120338 is added to the health and safety code. Then I wanted to make a comment about the ER doctor. This man doesn't have a degree in pharmacology. He's not a virologist, and he maybe sees patients in his ER, but he forgot to mention that there are 0 long-term studies for these vaccines. Studies originally are to run till December 2022 for safety. Our RT-PCR test is being retracted by the FDA, which is the test that is the sole foundation for the mathematics of this pandemic. Peak deaths distort COVID death numbers. Peak deaths are pneumonia, influenza, and COVID grouped together. And the mathematical probability for COVID deaths is not like a homogeneous number. There's different groups that have different risk factors. And he also forgot to mention that vaccine-induced enhancement of viral infections is a well-known and worldwide acknowledged concept where vaccines can enhance mutations and other infections. And basically, that is my statement for today. I do want to say our public records requests are not being honored by the County of Santa Barbara on the origin of COVID-19 data.
Time. Thank you. Our next 4 speakers are Melissa Cui-Kendall, Claudia Henry, Lydia Kessner, and Danny Blanc. Melissa Cui-Kendall, you are up next.
Good evening, board. There's been no greater marketing team for local private, remote, and homeschool learning than this school board. Congratulations. As we prepare for the eventuality that there will be many highly skilled, long-serving school employees being forced out by these mandates, I think it's important to review a few key items in this debate. This week, it was announced that Harvard Business School has moved most of their classes to remote learning despite having a 96% vaccination rate. What will that look like in the district? What excuses will you make for this phenomenon? The CDC currently only reports breakthrough cases that rise to the level of hospitalization. This has created a massive gap in knowledge regarding infection and transmission patterns. According to the public health website for Santa Barbara County, cases for those 18 and under make up less than 2% of those hospitalized, 62 children total. Since the pandemic started, one tragic death has occurred by a pediatric patient in Santa Barbara County. No word as to what comorbidities or illnesses may have existed prior to infection. Again, I am confused why you are creating medical mandates without consulting your own medical staff who are now under attack by the public when they are against this position. Laura, you said your decision, your quote, line in the sand, was when you heard a rumor that a teacher caused a quarantine event at a local school. Did you have evidence that there was indeed an outbreak caused by an unvaccinated employee? Was it possible that the infection was caused by a vaccinated person? You've heard over and over again that the data that the vaccinated carry the same viral load as the unvaccinated. How do you mandate a vaccine that still spreads infection? Laura, you mentioned in your op-ed that the carrot isn't working. What is the connotation of this? Originally, the phrase carrot and stick denotes a promised reward coupled with a threatened punishment as a method of persuasion or coercion. I can't think of a more condescending metaphor for your constituents, and it goes to show how you think of the families you work for. Is the decision to rescind the testing option for teachers due in part to the fact that you're having a shortage of tests, possibly due to the expense of approximately $50 per PCR test? Did I hear the district has ordered tens of thousands of more tests? Is this mandate, in fact, purely a decision that prevents the district from having to pay to accommodate staff that does not want to have the vaccination? What is the total amount that this district has spent to date on testing for employees? What is the total amount that the district has spent on testing for students? President Ford, it is offensive to everyone on the other side of this issue, and it is not a small minority to, quote, celebrate the staff that have come on board to vaccination status in the last week. You put their jobs on the line. You coerce them and force them into compliance. If you think parents that you work for are joining you in applause, you are living in an echo chamber. If you truly cared about bridging the gap in the community.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Claudia Henry.
Hello. I wanted to ask your ideas about how we could meet in person. It's really hard right now to invite people to the board meetings. And I remember my mom bringing me to the board meetings back in New York and seeing teachers speak and seeing the teachers speak to the board members and seeing the board members really speak nicely back and work on problems together. It was really inspiring. So I'm wondering, especially since people's jobs and health are at risk, if we could discuss this more humanely. I mean, people in Santa Barbara are really nice. They're not like those angry people on YouTube that go to a school board meeting and yell and make a political statement. People are very chillax. They just want to talk. And they want to look at the same studies and charts. And I'm wondering if we can come up with an alternative to the closed door meetings. At DP, we had our football meeting with 300 people on the stands, and the coaches and the principal there, they had microphones and a table, and it worked really great. And that was this year during COVID. Also, someone suggested that meeting at Sunken Gardens was good. That's always awesome for Fiesta. But I'm wondering if you guys could brainstorm a way where we could really meet. Because, we're not going to get angry. We frown upon that. It's not nice. We want to talk to you and we want to hear you and see you. So help us think this through. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lydia Kessner.
Hello. I just want to start by saying that flamenco presentation at the beginning seemed wonderful. I couldn't hear the music, But the board seemed delighted. I hope that next time we'll all be privileged to experience that in person. It was beautiful. And I just want to start by saying that it's a huge red flag that we can't answer these simple questions concerning vaccinated transmission and reinfection rates, as well as the, elephant in the room of natural immunity. It's very concerning when we can't have our medical professionals just answer these questions. But mostly I just have comments in response to the gentleman who spoke last week, legal counsel. It's already been mentioned, but the 1905 case, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, came out in 1902. Smallpox was spreading through Cambridge, so the city's Board of Health issued an order requiring all adults to be vaccinated against the disease. But he neglected to mention that the penalty for refusing vaccination was a fine of $5. That's $155 today. I bet everyone out there would pay that in a heartbeat. So there was no provision for actually forcing vaccination on any person. And then I want to move on to the Nuremberg case, where your legal counsel said that EUA is not experimental. If you go to the FDA's website, it says that a request for emergency use authorization for a vaccine can be submitted after phase 1 and 2 studies are complete, but before the phase 3 study is completed. So if that's not still experimental and in trials, I don't know what is. And we also all know by now that the FDA approved Comirnaty vaccine is not currently available to the public. So now that we use the FDA definition, not fact checkers financed by special interests, we've learned for ourselves what EUA means. Let's move on to the Nuremberg Code. The language is quite plain. I hope we can all understand it. So I'm going to start with number 1. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be so situated to be able to exercise free power of choice without intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved as to enable them to make an understanding and enlightened decision. This requires that before the acceptance of an affirmative decision by the subject, there should be made known to them the nature, duration, and purpose of the experiment, the methods and means by which it is to be conducted, and all inconvenience and hazard to be reasonably
Time. Thank you. Our next speaker is Danny Blunk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We brought you law, science, and facts here, but if it is not on CNN, those are not believed. So I will say my opinion. Laura and Kate, I saw you calling yourselves partners in crime, like a confession, because what you are doing here is part of the biggest crime against humanity. And I know the day you come that you and others will be persecuted. If you're not by the people, you'll be by God. I came from a country with a lot of corruption, and I can smell that from far away. I would like to request that you show the people how the $35 million you received from the government was distributed. We deserve and have the right to know. I believe because of that money, you are pushing these mandates. You talk about the greater good when you are taking away job of lots of teachers. Also, Kate Ford, I see that you work for Bill and Melinda Gates. How will you explain that you have not a personal interest in pushing the vaccines? Also, Laura, how can you say that the community is in your side when past Thursday you had 42 comments against the mandate and 10 in favor? That does not seem majority to me. Also, there are 2 petitions going around. The one in favor of mandating vaccine for the kids has 79 signatures. And the petition against mandates has almost 1,300 signatures in less than 24 hours. The community is not in your side. For the parents listening to this, I implore you, before you inject your kids with so-called vaccine, turn off your TV, you do your own research, not on Google. They also lie to you. If you feel lonely on your decision, know that we are building a beautiful community with critical thinkers, and you'll be welcomed here. And also, last question, where is the flag? Here outside on the pole. Thank you.
President Ford, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Morales, and thank you, speakers. We will now move on to the consent agenda to approve the items that are considered routine and not likely to require, in most cases, any discussion. Dr. Maldonado and her staff have recommended that the board approves all of the consent agenda items. And we also have had an opportunity to consider and ask questions about these items before tonight. So first, I don't believe there are any public comments on the consent agenda. Is that correct, Ms. Morales?
That's correct, President Ford.
Then before I call for a motion, board members or Dr. Maldonado, are there any items on the consent agenda that require more information, comments, or discussion? I see none. Thank you. Therefore, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented on items E2 through 11? Thank you, Ms. Munoz. And a second? Ms. Alvarez, thank you. All in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. That takes us to our action agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, there's only one action item tonight, and it is related to a student discipline case, which was discussed confidentially in closed session. And there are no public comments on this item, of course. Board members, may I have a motion to approve action item number 1, the board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, expulsion, case number 202122-03.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Sims Moten. And is there a second? Ms. Alvarez, thank you for your second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Board members, that takes us on to letter H. And I want to say thank you once again to the team as we continue with our agenda. There are no consent items, obviously, that require more discussion. That takes us to coming events. And as you review coming events, as we mentioned earlier, National Hispanic Heritage Month continues, as well as Filipino American History Month. And I'm very glad that Dr. Maldonado mentioned Dyslexia Awareness Month. And also there's a list of special recognition days in the coming weeks. So board members, please note the coming events and let Dr. Maldonado and I know if you would like to add any more future agenda items for our consideration. Our next meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting set for Tuesday, October 12th at 5:30 p.m. And that will be with public participation virtually. So as we adjourn tonight, I also want to remind us that today, the 4th Thursday of September, is National Voter Registration Day, when we truly celebrate democracy in the United States. We have an important upcoming election for city council members and mayor of Santa Barbara. So please, community, please get registered and vote. You just must be a citizen of the United States, a resident of California, and at least 18 years of age at the time of the next election, which is November 2nd. And in the words of Representative John Lewis, the most esteemed civil rights leader, your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have to create a more perfect union. And with that, tonight's meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School Board is adjourned at 7:35 p.m. Good evening.